I'm continuing my reading again, and what I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I'm reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a little bit as I go along. You may note I am also back in the basement, and so you will hear washers and dryers in the background. Right now I'm in Deuteronomy. This is chapter 17. Those who worship false gods shall be put to death. Priests and judges shall determine the hard cases. Kings shall not multiply horses or wives or gold. The king must study the laws of God daily. Excuse me. Thou shalt not sacrifice unto the Lord thy God any bullock or sheep wherein is blemish, or any evil favoredness, for that is an abomination unto the Lord thy God. What is evil favoredness? That's what I thought. Just a defect of any kind. So back in verse 2. If there be found among you within any of thy gates which the Lord thy God giveth thee, man or woman, that hath wrought wickedness in the sight of the Lord thy God, in transgressing his covenant, and hath gone and served other gods and worshipped them, either the sun or moon or any of the host of heaven, which I have not commanded, and it be told thee, and thou hast heard of it, and inquired diligently, and behold, it be true, and the thing certain, that such abomination is wrought in Israel, then shalt thou bring forth that man or that woman which have committed this wicked thing unto the gates, even that man or that woman, and shalt stone them with stones till they die. At the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses shall he that is worthy of death be put to death. But at the mouth of 1 witness he shall not be put to death. The hands of the witnesses shall be first upon him to put him to death, and afterward the hands of all the people. So thou shalt put the evil away from among you. Now this is an important thing. Again, another recurring theme throughout the scriptures, really, but especially in the law of Moses. The law of witnesses. You cannot convict somebody on a single testimony. You have to have a minimum of 2. 3 is better, but you have to have a minimum of 2 people testifying to what they saw. They can't testify to what somebody else saw, again. So it has to be the testimony of eyewitnesses, and the witnesses have to be the ones to cast the first stone. So remember, this is significant also, skipping ahead to the ministry of Christ. Remember the woman taken in adultery. And the men say that, this woman was taken in adultery, meaning she was found guilty. She was found in the act. And what was Christ's answer? Let he who is without sin among you cast the first stone. Now this ties back into this, because if they were being honest, they would have accused the woman and the man. If she was taken in adultery, that means she was caught in the act. Therefore, her and the man were both guilty. They both should have been stoned. And the witnesses who brought her to Christ should have been the first to accuse both of them. Therefore, the very accusation that they were making is a violation of this law, because they are not giving an accurate testimony, and they are not willing to be the first to cast a stone at the man. Everything ties back together. But let us leave that and get back to Deuteronomy. This will be verse 8. If there arise a matter too hard for thee in judgment, between blood and blood, between plea and plea, and between stroke and stroke, being matters of controversy within thy gates, then shalt thou arise and get thee up into the place which the Lord thy God shall choose. And thou shalt come unto the priests, the Levites, and unto the judges, and unto the judge that shall be in those days, and inquire, and they shall shew thee the sentence of judgment. And thou shalt do according to the sentence which they of that place which the Lord shall choose shall shew thee. And thou shalt observe to do according to all that they inform thee, according to the sentence of the law which they shall teach thee, and according to the judgment which they shall tell thee, thou shalt do. Thou shalt not decline from the sentence which they shall shew thee, to the right hand nor to the left. And the man that will do presumptuously, and will not hearken unto the priest that standeth to minister there before the Lord thy God, or unto the judge, even that man shall die. And thou shalt put away the evil from Israel. And all the people shall hear and fear, and do no more presumptuously. Now this is another interesting one. So the judges are set up, and when we get to the time of the judges, this is what it's saying. Each town, they had their own local judges, in a sense. And it was like, if there was a dispute between you and your neighbor, you would take it to the town elders. And the elders would decide the case. But if the elders couldn't decide, if there was some ambiguity, some controversy in it, and they couldn't decide the case, then those involved would go to the judge, or to the high priest, or to the priests and the Levites. And they would decide the case, but they were the final decision. Once they made a ruling, you had to abide by it. And if you didn't, in other words, this is, in a sense, you're in contempt of court. The judge has issued his ruling, and you're saying, no, I'm not going to listen to you. They don't just issue a fine, they execute you. Because you are now opposing the law. You are not just committing an act privately. You are now in direct opposition to the legal authority. This is, in a sense, committing treason. You are saying, I am going to do what I want without regard to the ruling authority. That is treason, and that is worthy of death. And remember, the reason for this, as it says, the reason for this, it's not to punish the guilty party exactly. I mean, it is. But the primary reason, as it says, is so that the people will fear. The people will understand that this is unacceptable, and it will reduce the amount of times that this happens. It is a deterrent for the living to know that if they do this, the penalty is death. And if that penalty is applied consistently, then it will have the consistent effect of deterring the act in the future among the living. Anyways, let us continue, verse 14. When thou art come unto the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, and shalt possess it, and shalt dwell therein, and shalt say, I will set a king over me, like as all the nations that are about me. Thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Lord thy God shall choose. One from among thy brethren shalt thou set king over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brethren. But he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he should multiply horses. For as much as the Lord hath said unto you, ye shall henceforth return no more that way. Neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart turn not away. Neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. And it shall be, when he sitteth upon the throne of his kingdom, that he shall write him a copy of this law in a book, out of that which is before the priests, the Levites. And it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, to keep all the words of this law and these statutes, to do them. That his heart be not lifted up above his brethren, and that he turn not aside from the commandment to the right hand or to the left, to the end that he may prolong his days in the kingdom, in his kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel. Now, I do want to make a few comments here, because this is a common passage that is used to try and claim that plural marriage is condemned by God. And it is not understood. So, first of all, you'll note that God is here giving permission for Israel to take a king, to appoint a king. God is not forbidding kings. He is saying here now, if there comes a time when you want a king, okay. But this is the law you have to follow when you're going to appoint yourself a king. This is what has to be. So he's actually giving a law for establishing a kingdom here. Second of all, you'll note that it can't be a stranger. In other words, it has to be an Israelite. It has to be somebody born in Israel. Very important. But then they use the passage in verse 17, neither shall he multiply wives to him. It says, oh, he's not supposed to have multiple wives. Excuse me. The problem here is the context. Because it also says he is not to multiply horses to himself. So is this saying that he's not supposed to own any horses? Or he can't own more than one? The king can never have more than one horse, just like he can never have more than one wife? Of course not. What it is saying here, it is saying who or what he can exact as taxation. He cannot take people's animals as a tax. He cannot take wives as a kind of tax. He cannot use his position as king to take these things. But you'll note that it says, neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. In other words, he can take silver and gold. He can't exact that as a taxation. Money. But he can't overly tax. He can't put undue burden on the people in exacting money from them. So this is the law of the king. He has to be an Israelite. To support the kingdom, he can tax the people of their money, but he cannot take their animals or wives. He cannot take that as taxation, as payment, as tribute to him as king. That cannot be. He cannot say, I'm going to marry your daughter because I'm king. That is not allowed. He can take money. He can require a tax of money, but he cannot require the people to pay him anything else. Israelite, taxing money but nothing else, and he has to have a copy of the law, which he studies every day so that he is fluent in it. He can't rely on the priests. He can't rely on the judges. He can't rely on anybody else to know the law and interpret the law for him. He has to know the law inside out and backwards, and he has to follow it. He is subject to the law just like everybody else in the kingdom. This is the law of kings in Israel. This is how the law of Moses sets up kings. This is what God's law regarding kings is. And this is how King Mosiah in the Book of Mormon, this is what he lived by. He did his own work. He had his own land, his own animals. He did exact taxes to pay for the kingdom. But he also knew the law inside out and backwards. That is what a true king is. And if you have that kind of a king, then that is a good thing. But that section does not condemn kings, nor does it condemn plural marriage. It simply lays out the law by which a king is appointed and how he must rule, what he is allowed to do as king. Or more specifically, what he is not allowed to do and what he is required to do. Because that's also the best laws for rulers, is to state what you can't do. You state what you are required to do and what you are not allowed to do. Once those two things have been taken care of, everything else is open. But if you state what you can do, then nothing becomes barred to you. If you're not saying what is not allowed, if you're not saying what you can't do, then everything is allowed. And that is what causes tyranny, is when the law gives power rather than restricting power. A good law restricts power in the government. It does not give power to the government. But I have ranted a bit now, so I am going to say goodbye, and I will see you in the next chapter.